Oh, hello, everybody. You joined us a very good time. We're going to put this in straight away. Ali, I think you put it best. I'll let you do this. This notice.
Oh, yes. Afternoon, everyone. Just to warn you that behind the other side of this camera are two very small, very yappy little old lady dogs. So if you hear something like that sounds like two idiot dogs going mad, it's because they can see through the gate, or there might be a leaf that annoyed them somewhere. So who knows? So, and I normally jump when it happens.
There might be a few
Yeah.
laughs in today's
So
session.
yeah, so if it's quite funny if it happens because I'm quite easy to startle, apparently.
And your responses are normally always even better. So yeah, we will caution you. There might be swearing. There probably will be swearing if the dogs begin to go. So yeah, don't get too offended.
Yeah, sorry in
You love them
advance.
dearly. I promise you that. No dogs were harmed in the recording of this video.
No, not even when they desperately deserve it. They're the most indulged dogs in the entire world.
So yeah, hello everybody. It's good to be here, and we're actually kind of crying already. It's good to be back on the Wellbeing chat, talking to one of my favourite people, Ali Hollands. Obviously doing this on Mental Health Awareness Week, trying to raise awareness behind mental health, loneliness, the things we can do, and some practical takeaways which can ultimately help to many people improve what they're doing for their mental health. So because this is not about me, this is about the people I'm talking to. So before I get into it, and you guys know me, I'm going to introduce Ali Hollands. Ali, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I can. Obviously, Ali Hollands. I am a clinical solution-focused hypnotherapist, and I work with people who struggle with stress and anxiety, but all sorts of mental and physical health issues, to help them regain control and move forward in a really positive way, creating resilience, positivity, and generally just rocking out their lives. I also teach solution-focused hypnotherapy with a school called CPHT. So they're one of the oldest hypnotherapy schools in the UK, and that's really good fun. In fact, I'll be teaching in Birmingham this weekend, and I muck about with Rich, doing all sorts of cool things with employees' health, which is really exciting. So I get to do some training and talks and things like that too. So it's fun. So all things mental health, really.
Yeah. And what I always say about Ali is she looks at it from a different angle. I think we can look at mental health from one angle, and I think looking at it from the brain makes it maybe a bit more real, and understand the actual aspects to why we all struggle from mental health. So if you haven't already, we're not meant to be plugging at all on this. If you haven't already, you need to listen to one of Ali's workshops. Just saying, no plugs. But hopefully you guys know me. I don't need to go into this. Employees Hub is a workplace wellbeing company. That's what I'm going to say. So to get into the root cause of all of this, Ali, I want you to give me your story behind who you are now, the journey you've been on to become a hypnotherapist, to educate people around mental health. Give me that story first, and I might dive deeper into it.
Cool. So, well, first of all, it was a bit of an accident. I never intended to become a hypnotherapist in any way, shape, or form. I used to work as a marketing copywriter, so would write kind of websites and sales copy and things like that. And I saw someone talk about hypnotic language. So I went to have a chat with them and somehow ended up on their training course because they were doing a pilot project for clinical hypnotherapy training. I still don't know how I ended up on that course. Did not intend still, whilst I was training. I just thought, I'd be really good to learn about that kind of language. Didn't think that you could just read a book on it, which of course you can. There's some really famous ones. And then said, oh no, I'm just kind of interested in the learning. It's really interesting. And then started working with clients as a student because I had to. And it was like, oh, this is what it means to do something that actually matters finally. Because I'd never, I've had good jobs and etc., all of that stuff and things that I enjoyed, but nothing where it was making a difference to somebody's life right in front of me. And I was just hooked. And that was over 10 years ago now. I got my original qualification in 2011 in traditional hypnotherapy, did some training in NLP the next year, and then in 2015 trained with CPHT to transfer over to solution focused hypnotherapy, and that's what I use now for everyone. And I love that because it's not about delving into the past, it's about moving into the future. And if it's going to be, where are you now and how would you like it to be if it's a little bit better, and then a little bit and a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. And of course that's how we make change anyway. Plus it's all backed by neuroscience, which just is fab because it means people feel, I like it because people feel less like a victim or less like it's their fault if they're struggling, because they understand that can happen to brains, and that's what happens. And I think the more we understand, the more research there is, which there's so much, you can't keep up with it nowadays. We're learning more and more and more about how the brain and the body interact with one another and what kind of things are likely to create stress and anxiety and mental health challenges. And, we are moving in the right direction, which is, it's an exciting time to be doing this. So yeah, and then started teaching for them a few years ago and trained as a supervisor, which is basically a mentor for hypnotherapists as well. So yeah, and that's how I got here and run my own little business. Currently I moved to Shropshire, so now I run it all online because I run it from home. So
yeah. And I think as you said, when you find a calling, you just stick with that. And there's obviously going to be challenges along the way. And been a very, very random detour. I don't know if you can see the comments here, Ali.
I can't see any of the comments. I've deliberately got rid of them.
Have you? So our friend El Cloak is saying a few things. First off, her favourite's back, and obviously she's talking about me. And then second, she's asked, "What's the word on Ali's jumper?" I think it says, "Oh, vague."
Vague.
Yeah. Something we're not going to be today, I hope. But
it's right. No, that's how I run through life. I thought it was a perfect day.
Just stay vague the whole time.
Vague.
Easier, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see if I can get back on track somehow. Yeah, and that's when I think when we first met. That's what really helped me understand kind of mental health a bit further. It was actually, these are responses that naturally happen, and we think of this because of this, and it's the brain's response to this. And so when you begin to understand that, it helps us understand our thoughts and what it actually is not us in control. It's a process our brain deals with.
Yeah.
Elle, stop distracting me, Elle. She's put more comments on. Anyway, to dive a bit more into the mental health elements of it, I'm going to get a bit personal for a second with you, Ali. Has there been any times in your life, and I presume there will be, being a business owner, I can imagine there's probably a few, but is there anything which kind of stands out where you've maybe struggled and then recognized the change?
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah, and it's not something I talk about a lot, really. I think this is the thing, I think everyone has had mental health challenges. We might not have all been like really, really ill, but we've all had mental health challenges. And I can kind of look at almost every single decade of my life and see different times, different challenges. I think the one that's really interesting, because this year it's around loneliness, the Mental Health Awareness Week. And of course, Mark and I got married at the end of last year, and then we moved literally about 2.5 weeks later across the country. So from Kent to Shropshire. So we moved away from every single person we know just before Christmas, and in a really kind of, in a big emotive time, kind of emancipated a child at the same time. So my youngest still has my house there. So yeah, so a lot went on. And so for me, this kind of loneliness thing is really like, oh, this is a big deal, actually. Not that I didn't already know that, but it's really made me kind of consider what's important and how important having your community or your, I sometimes, we talk about tribes, our tribes around us, and how important that is, because we're a social species. So for me, that's kind of my current one, is looking for how I'm going to build those people around me, because although I can connect with all of my friends and like here online, and that's lovely, it still feels quite far away. So there's that bit where it's not about the fact that you're alone, it's how you feel within that. So yeah, that's probably my current one. But yeah, I've had my challenges with depression. I think I struggled with, I mean, I look back and it's like undiagnosed postnatal depression. I really struggled with grief for a long time because my mum died when I was 26. And so that affected me. I did not deal well with that at all. So grief's another thing that I quite like to work with people, so that they can have a more a healthier grief, or even just to understand what's going on sometimes is really useful, just to understand there's nothing wrong with you. This is grief. Yeah, that's what's happening to you right now. And that is
allowed to be sad, because it's a sad thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's a really healthy process. And it's and we can be grieving for anything. It doesn't have to be a person. It can be a job, it can be a time of our life, all sorts of things, our health sometimes, if somebody's, if we're working with somebody who's kind of got a longer term health condition, it might be that they have to grieve for the, what they used to be able to do and how they used to live before they can move forward as well. So there's all of these, and this is it. It can feel quite complicated. So sometimes just to understand that's why, again, the moving forward bit is just like, this is what's happening. This is why it's happening. And, and okay, and this is how we're going to move forward. That's why I love that.
Yeah. And I think I remember you saying to me in something which always resonated with me, was we have 1,000 thoughts a day, or 100,000 thoughts, or something like that.
It keeps changing. I've seen it said now somewhere between 100,000, 70,000, and then I've read also 6,000. I'm like, So
we'll take an average of those and say 50 something.
Yeah,
lots of thoughts every day.
Yes.
And I think when we're more by ourselves, or when shit hits the fan, something happens, grief happens, or mental health happens, and wherever the situation is, I think those thoughts become more negative. Also, you begin to notice them a lot more, and you hear that self-talk more than you do when you're maybe thriving a bit more, and maybe the narrative you speak to yourself is a bit more positive. And I think since you said that to me, that's the thing that always resonates with me about the power of thought. And it's actually being able to understand what that means, and the power of just changing the language we use, although very hard, especially when you're not in a thriving mindset or position, and you've got your challenges going on. It's hard to do. If we can, it is recognizing that it's just a thought and a feeling. I think once you can understand that, begins to help us.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that when we understand the language that we have inside our head, because for most of us, we have an inner voice. Not everyone. There's a certain number of people, they don't have an inner voice. Really odd. Don't know how people work like that. So they don't have an inner monologue, which most people do. And we have to be in charge of that. And if there's more than one voice in there, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It usually means there's two bits of you having a chat, and if one of them's really negative, I can tell you where that one is. And it's not the bit you want to be working from or listening to. And the language we use is important. Sometimes I do talk to people about being mindful of what they say and how they say it. Even things like, I don't want to be like this. Well, if you don't want to be like that, tell me what you do want to be like. It's because it's a completely different thing. I want to be less sad. Well, what does that look like? Or less angry, or, things like that. It's like, I'd actually like to be calmer, happier, more capable, more in control. And what does more in control look like? So you can then start building something tangible around it. Whereas if you're just talking negatively all the time, it's really hard to get hold of that and do something useful with it. It's not that it's wrong, it's like, I don't want to be so sad is a perfectly valid place to start. Or, you're stupid isn't a valid place to start, and we really need to be mindful of that one. That is not the inner voice we want to talk to.
And I can't believe you just called me stupid as well. That's just not very nice, is it?
You're not. I was thinking about,
the inner voice.
Yeah, people talk a lot about their inner critic, and about silencing it. There are whole courses and books about silencing your inner critic. And the best way to do that is strengthen your inner cheerleader, because they can be more powerful, and we're more attracted to positivity. We listen to negativity because it will keep us safe, but we're actually more attracted to positivity. Okay.
They're going to go, aren't they?
No, there's just a lot happening here. Working from home sometimes sucks, because sometimes there's loads of people around. No, they don't mind. This is all right. If you notice any like other random loud noises,
just go with it.
Just how it is.
Yeah, and we're speaking about mental health, and part of that is stress, and as you could just see plainly on Ali's face, the stress of having to do a LinkedIn live and not worry about noises.
I know, it's always the thing. It's just like everything else. I've kind of moved everything else around it, but I've got lovely people. I'm very lucky having a bathroom done. But it's people in your house, isn't it? And everyone you talk to who has stuff done said, yeah, there's a point where you just want everyone to go away. And I've reached that point.
Bet you can't.
But it's not there, even if they're lovely, which they are. So yeah. And they're about to come past, so let's be good.
Hi, Gaddy. I think that's how I'm going to say your name. Could be wrong. Sorry if I said it wrong. Thanks for joining us. So yeah, thanks for sharing that kind of story. I know you've got obviously bits and pieces in the past, and I think you've really made a clear point here. Is actually life is up and down. You're going to have times of grief, of poor mental health, of bits and pieces going on, as you said, your mum passing away, the loneliness, or the thing going on now. I don't want to call it loneliness, but you might change that term. And there was another bit which you said, but it just shows you that life isn't just roses, and we're just continuously in this thriving position. We are up and down the whole time. I think that's important to understand, because once you understand that concept, you know that at some point it will pass, and you'll be back to where you were, but staying strong. And I think it's trying to remind yourself that at maybe the lowest points.
I think it's a really important point, that actually when we are struggling, it's that feeling that we can't get back there can often lead to that feeling of really struggling. Because part of getting better for people, if they are struggling with their mental health, is hope. It's a big part of what we do, that if you are hopeless, then you tend not to take any steps towards a better future. So being hopeful that things do change because everything changes is really useful.
Yeah. When you're hopeless, you're more scared of risk as well.
Well, hopeless, you just won't do anything. What's the point?
Yeah.
We don't do anything that we don't have to do as humans, because action takes effort. So if there's no reward for the effort, we tend not to want to do it. We're not motivated to take action. It's just the way it goes. So, yeah.
So I know we've touched on loneliness already, but as it is the theme, I want to go kind of dive in a little bit deeper. Have you had any moments apart from now? Because I think we're still going through that now. Have you had any moments of loneliness in the past that you can share with us, then the phase of getting out of that?
Well, to be fair, I think now is such a brilliant one because, and because it was so stark, because of course we just had like the best time ever at the end of last year. It was awesome. And we were really excited because we got a new house and new job, you know, basically knew everything. And then it's like, after a while, we're like feeling really bad. So both Mark and I went, are you feeling a little, I was just like, I'm feeling a little bit meh. And he's like, yeah, me too. Just meh. Not bad, but just not great. And bearing in mind that we're kind of quite happy-go-lucky people, that's pretty bad for us. And it wasn't. We just both recognised like we're missing our friends.
Yeah.
And you know, and even just like, you know, being able to walk into town and go to the gym, like missing all of those things. So feeling very isolated. And it doesn't feel good. You know, we're not designed to feel like that. And if you've built up a life, to not have that is then really, it's painful.
Yeah.
And loneliness, people don't think loneliness is that important, but it can literally, at its worst, although it's not been categorized on the mental health as a mental health issue, or a disease rather, but at its worst it can shorten life. So it's not to be underestimated. You know, I think throughout life you have periods of loneliness. I grew up, well, my dad was in the army, and he came out when I was 9, came out of the army when I was 9, but up until then we'd moved every couple of years, so I was constantly remaking friends. So it was that thing where I found ways not to be, because again, social species, so you kind of go in at full tilt, because you know you don't get to keep them very long. So yeah, throughout life there's been lots of different periods of loneliness, even when stupid stuff like finishing A levels, all my friends went to university and I didn't. Honestly, things that people don't really think about. But yeah, if I look back, I can identify that loneliness around it. Or, you know, when I first had my daughter, again, friends who didn't have children, or they'd done something out, you know, or I wasn't going out, and, you know, so, and it can feel very, again, that can feel very lonely. So yeah, there's all sorts of times. But I think the biggest thing, and we're going to talk about it later, is like things to be happy is to actively seek connection. Because we're a social species. Even if you don't like a lot of people, I would say it doesn't matter if you're an introvert or extrovert, you are part of the human species, which is a social species. So you will need somebody around you.
We need tribe, don't we? We need community.
Yeah.
And I always talk about pre and post war, and how only looking back 100 years shows you the link between how social community focused we were, and the levels of mental health issues pre-war to now post-war, when we are so much more of a self-focused individual, where everything or our own success is done as an individual rather than as a community, and we survived as a community back then. We're now so much more controlled. We can do everything by ourselves. And I think Mike said it on Monday, that you can live basically from your office or from a room by ordering everything you need in. You don't need anybody else to survive, where we can survive now by ourselves. And I think that's a big element to the compounding factor of increased mental health issues. And
Yeah.
I come from a sports background and a team background, and I think it's something which we all need, and when we understand that need for trying to interact with more people and have that better balance, the better it is. So my next question to you, Ellie, on that is, how are you at the moment, on how do you suggest people bring more, how do people deal with loneliness? I think there's two questions there. I think loneliness is a thought process, because isolation is being by yourself. Loneliness is a thought process of being by yourself. So how do you deal with loneliness is my first question to you.
Well, so I can't say how everyone would deal with it, but I think the first thing is to recognize that's what's going on. I think that self-awareness is always really important. So just to recognize, oh, that's what's going on. Right, I'm actually lonely. I'm missing human connection, or connection really, because it doesn't have to be human. Some people actively would prefer anything other than human. I'm thinking about the idiot dogs, by the way. And I've got a few clients who their connection isn't, they prefer animals to people. 100%, or even a connection to nature. So, and it's connection that we're looking for. So I think that's it. Is the first job is to recognize that's what's going on. And because there is a feeling of, particularly you might notice loneliness more if you're in a crowd, but feeling like nobody understands you, nobody sees you, nobody, you're just feeling on the outside looking in. That's, that can be a real loneliness thing. So I think particularly now, because obviously we have moved, it was like, people saying, oh, how's it going? It's like, oh yeah, it's really nice. Everyone's really friendly. Don't know any friends here. That thing, I've met lots of friendly people, but haven't met my people. So it's just recognizing it, and then it's taking steps. Things won't change if you don't do anything. So and obviously that could be just, instead of waiting for other people to text, but they should be checking up on me, and feeling a bit sorry for ourselves and a bit stroppy. And again, this can be not how somebody, I'm not saying that's how everyone is. I'm saying that is some of the reactions we get, where we feel like other people should be doing stuff. It's just like, maybe I should just send the text. So that says, what are you up to? Or if we don't have people or things in our life, to actively move towards some. I'm moving towards, I didn't ever think in my entire life I'd go to Zumba. I'm not going to Zumba because I think it's the best form of exercise for me. I'm going to Zumba because there are other people there, and I might be able to persuade some of them to go to the pub afterwards. It's like, you got to go where the people. For me, it's just like, only go where the people are. All right, I will. So I'm going networking. I'm going join the WI of all things. Again, I know it's just a completely different life, isn't it? But you've got to go where the people are. Really lovely and subversive. Yeah, the WI, very feminist organization, very cool people, underrated.
Love it. I always, I think the whole time you were talking there, I kept looking back at kind of my lonely points, and I suppose for me, very much being a single guy, living by myself, but even beforehand, when you've got a group of friends, and I'm quite lucky that I've got many acquaintances and many friends, but probably like a handful of mates, or sorry, all the way around. I got a load of mates, but a handful of friends, which I would kind of call upon. And I suppose we are, as human beings, overthinkers, as I said earlier on, with all of our thoughts. We can easily we get ourselves into a trap of thinking that somebody else should be reaching out. Why is somebody not reaching out to me and looking after me? And I remember looking at that during the lockdowns, and as we were coming out of it, I kept thinking, oh, I'm sitting here by myself, no one cares. Until I changed that mindset and said, actually, and it still happens sometimes now, where I sit at home and kind of go, oh, I'm bored, especially over the weekends. You sit there on a Saturday going, oh, I've got nothing to do. Hockey's finished. I've got nothing to do. What am I going to do? And then actually it comes from a shift in mindset. Oh, I'm going to go and do this and see these people do this. And I think because it is just a full process of I'm lonely, I need someone to care about me. But when you go, actually, what can I do? Who can I reach out to? It makes that process of loneliness maybe a bit better. And so, yes, I mean, it is obviously internal. There are obviously external factors, people being able to reach out and recognizing signs of loneliness. But I think it's still a full process within ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, and it's all kind of on a scale. So if it's a little bit, it's a lot easier. If it's been happening for a long time and it's chronic, it can be a lot more difficult. So, this isn't saying like, oh, it's all, this is something, and if you're not doing, it's your fault. It's like, that's not that at all, because it can be really hard to step out, and particularly if you are, you are naturally quite shy, or you are introverted, or, and that's the thing. These don't necessarily have to be face-to-face things. Some of the best communities can be online. There are still joyful online communities that are really lovely places to be. And, and I've got a few friends who they made a lot of friends with, even like, I can't remember what it was. I think it was like a TV program. They kind of connected over a TV program and just chatting about it in some, like, some random chat room back in the day. But then they went and met up, or, there's all sorts of ways. So it doesn't, so I think it's that bit where we have to look a bit sideways. Okay, how do I like to connect? Because not everyone, I'm very much like, I'm going to go and put myself in places because that's what I like. But for other people, it might be, okay, well, that's a bit much for me. I'm not doing that. Because of course, now's an awesome time for the bin men to come as well. Yeah. So, yeah.
Chain of thought on.
Oh, it's just all go. It's just all go here. Yeah, I live in a tiny village where nothing happens except right when we're doing this.
At 1 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon.
Of course it is. So it's about finding your way of connecting. And for some people, that's a cause as well. It's getting involved in something that's important to them, because that makes you feel connected to a cause, and it's easier. So there's lots of ways of doing it, but it's always that, what makes me feel more connected. Because most people are too busy in their own heads to worry about you.
We've all got, like, everybody's got stuff going on.
That's just how it is.
And that's a cop-out, right? I could say that everybody's got stuff going on. But we all had, like, if you think you've got all these thoughts, that person's also got all their thoughts, but they've also got other bits going on as well as you. So I think as a community, what does a community do? It reaches out and supports each other. So that's kind of the ultimate thing. I'm going to move on to the bigger picture and move on to mental health and the epidemic of poor mental health, and just chat about this. See if we can spark a conversation on how do we fix this epidemic of poor mental health, if we can.
What? Oh, you're asking. That's a big question, Rich.
I know, it's a big question. Just going to happen, isn't it?
That is a social paradigm shift.
Where would you start?
Where would I start? I would, honestly, you need to start by having I know there's the big thing, which is you need to actually judge how successful a country is, not on how rich it is, but how well it is.
Yeah.
That is actually what that would fix this.
Yeah.
And you base everything on that. And it's really interesting because that's there are a few countries, Scandi ones typically, who they, rather than GDP, gross domestic product, rather than GDP, it's they've changed it to wellness. So so it's not about how much do we produce, how much money do we have, how much of a big fish are we in the world. They're not that's happening, but they're actually basing it on wellness scores and happiness scores in their country. And of course what that does is it completely shifts the focus, and it means that you prioritize people being happier and people being more fulfilled, because it's not just, people think happiness is like, oh, that's a bit wet, isn't it? But happy people are productive, happy people are effective, they're kind, they tend not to commit crimes, they don't cost so much for they don't have so many other diseases. It's just like, it's fiscally, it's the smart move. And I could rant a little bit more about how short-sighted and stupid people are for not thinking that. And it's just like, I'm not stupid, but I'm not like massively smart. And I can see this. It's just like, if you chose to do that, that would revolutionize everything. And it would be awesome, because the thing is like, have you ever met a Scandi country that's poor? No, you haven't. So it's just like, it's the smart move, but there you go.
Yeah.
You've got to decide that's what's important to you. I think it's really hard to do it on an individual basis, because there's only so much we can do on an individual basis. But imagine if you thought about that in, so bringing it back to something that is a little bit more within our control, I guess, again, is with ourselves. It's like, okay, do I prioritize, maybe I need to prioritize wellness for me. Maybe I need to prioritize wellness for my family. Maybe it would be great to prioritize wellness for the place that I live. So we can kind of work upwards that way. Ultimately, if you want to solve it, you actually do have to go top down. You have to make a big decision to be revolutionary, and I don't expect that's ever going to happen.
No.
So, which is, so it's like, so we might as well not get cross about it.
No.
Might as well go where we can.
Yeah. I think, you have got a point. I think but the government doesn't change anything, because if they were to do something, they would look at the education and the way that young people are suffering from poor mental health, and they would change that to start with.
But then stop testing them every 3 seconds.
Making them doing all the homework. I mean, I could rant about young people's poor mental health for a long, long time.
A long time, but we do have to go and do other stuff.
We have got other species.
Plus, then we'd be all cross afterwards too.
Exactly. I think it's the thing I'm talking to people in conversation about most, young people's mental health. But yeah, I think you're spot on. I think first and foremost, we need to understand what makes us kind of happy, do more of that. And I think for me, it goes back to the community element of things. And it really ties in really well with loneliness, and the theme of that. The bigger your group of people, the better that group of people, the better you will be, because you're around people which are bringing you up the whole time.
Yeah, I think, well, we actually have a sweet spot for community. It's about, I can't remember what it is. There is if someone wants to look it up and put it in the comments, what's the perfect number of people? I think it's around 250, because that would have been the size of a village.
Yeah.
And that is our sweet spot, where that's how many people we can feel connected to. So, and that gives us like our inner circle and our wider circle to feel connected to.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Perfect. Where are we now? We've got 5 minutes, Ali, and do you know where this leads to? The bit you're dreading most.
I've been thinking about this.
Have you? You've been trying to multitask. You're doing a good job. And then Julie West said 250 is right. Thank you, Julie. And hi, Rob.
Thank
Afternoon.
you.
How are you? So to end, I mean, we obviously covered a fair few bits and pieces, and we had a chat like we promised. But I always like to give useful bits of advice, and so I'm going to leave or end this conversation on your top 3 things to create or to improve our mental health or create happiness.
Okay, so I want to tie it into the theme of Mental Health Awareness Week, so combating loneliness. And because it's all about feeling connected to something or someone, number one, get in touch with one person who is lovely. Honestly, it's like the person who you can have a cup of tea and talk nothing useful about, with nothing good happens, particularly you just feel better because you've hung out with them. So send them a text or a message or an email or a Snapchat, whatever it is you do, and say, shall we go out for a cup of tea or something like that, or can I come round for a cup of tea? Number one. So you're one good person. So find your sunshine person. And 2, do something you love. So if you like crafting, go and buy the crafty stuff. Spend the money on the crafty stuff. If you like sport, if you like going to the gym, go and do something. Whatever it is, if it's films, if it's connect with it in some way with a hobby or a passion that really, or, that could even be, as I said, we talked about causes. They make people feel really connected. And the last thing would be, it's a really interesting one, it's altruism. So it's doing things for other people. That makes us happy. That's not being a people pleaser or a doormat, by the way. And it's not a bad thing to know that by you doing nice things, that makes you happy. That hooks into that lovely community thing, that social animal. So that's a good thing. You should feel good when you do that. It should give you a little warm glow inside. That's okay. You're allowed to have that. So helping out, volunteering, whatever it might be, doing your next door neighbour's shopping, whatever it is, taking their dog for a walk because they've hurt their ankle. I don't know what it might be. Yeah.
You could do that. That's so good, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Thanks, Julie.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, do you see that?
That was magical.
I know. Yeah, Julie West, just rare.
Hang out with Julie West. She sounds like she's got some techo knowledge that we need, you and me.
Yeah, I think I was the one who pressed. I can do it again. Ready? There you go. I think, yeah, spot on. Find somebody who brings you up. Thank you. Did I cut into your last little piece there?
No, I don't think so. No, I think I was waffling by that time.
Yeah. No, I don't think you were, Andy. You're always on the dot. Thanks for joining me. It's super interesting hearing your point of view. And just as always, being the person who lifts everybody up. You always bring positivity, even if sometimes I know you fake it. You do bring positivity into conversations, and I hope everybody understands and just brings, or just kind of maybe uses this talk as to help them understand what's going on. But hopefully it helps anybody improve their mental well-being. We got one more tomorrow with Sally, which I know Sally's already shared her story, but we'll go and dive a bit deeper into that, as well as keep on doing what we're doing, and hopefully we can help more people.
Fabulous.
Now I'm beginning to waffle on. So before I carry on waffling on, I will say thank you, Ali. Do you want to say thanks quickly?
Yeah, thank you. It's been awesome.
Not me. I'm talking to everybody else.
Thank everyone else for coming. I don't know who's here because all I can see is you.
Oh, that's true.
And I know Julie's here too, and Elle's hassling you. So hey to Elle.
But perfect. I'll see everybody later on. If not, have a lovely week. Sunshine is finally out on this terrible week. And yeah, have a nice weekend. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.